Welcome into Hoopstream's Western Conference Finals Edition. I'm Cassidy Hubbarth alongside Christine Williamson, and we also got Tim Legler in the house. Oh, like Hoopstream's just got smart. Like we have
it was already plenty smart.
We have to raise our game. It's a big night, guys. Big night. We'll be keeping our eye on the draft lottery, give you the first reaction when we find out who snagged that number one pick. But of course, we're also counting down to game one of the Western Conference Finals between the Lakers and Nuggets. And guys, look, absolutely no one wants to go back to 2020, okay? And as someone who spent 7 weeks in the bubble, absolutely no one wants to go back to the bubble. But we're going to revisit just with pictures and sound and everything, is this playoff Final Four is basically a revisit of the 2020 bubble. And starting with tonight, Lakers and Nuggets. LA back in 2020, they would jump out to a 2-0 lead after AD's buzzer beater in game two. But guys, how about Jamal Murray? Took his game to another universe in that postseason. Became an offensive juggernaut, but it wasn't enough, though, as LeBron and the Lakers took the series in 5 games to advance to the NBA Finals, where they met the Heat and won it all.
Okay, so Legs, I know you said you liked the names of all of these segments that our production crew
some of the best I've ever
come
heard.
up with.
Yeah.
So this segment, guys, is called Deja Vu or Brand New. And Cass mentioned the fact that Jamal Murray was an absolute bucket when he was in the bubble. So let's talk about that. Is it going to be deja vu for Jamal Murray as he continues his playoff run?
I'm going deja vu. This won't be brand new. He's going to do something similar, I think, to what he did. Now, look, obviously, he took that to a whole nother level with his scoring. So it might not be on that level. I wouldn't expect it to be. But here's what I love about Jamal Murray, what I'm watching now. He is playing with such a chip on his shoulder and such an edge and a nasty demeanor. He has a lot to prove. He feels like not only has his team been slighted in the coverage, he feels like he himself has not been given credit to be a star player with some of these other guys that are in these series. He has that mentality right now. He's hungry. He's going to have a big series. So I think it's a lot of deja vu from what we saw in the bubble.
And as someone who has asked them the question, what's it going to take to get back to Bubble Jamal, and got the look of like, do not say Bubble Jamal to me.
He definitely
one more
like
time. He does have a chip on his shoulder, but I will say he's starting to look a little bit like Bubble Jamal out there. It was a process for him this year, getting back into conditioning. He 16.9 points per game in the regular season, 24.7 points per game in the playoffs. That 0.7.8 points per game increase is the largest in NBA history. And his argument back about the I'm not Bubble Jamal is that, like, he's still early in his career.
It's a great point, and I could just tell you speak from experience with the injury that he had, right? I went through 2 of those matching set, and I could just tell you that first year, you're really just kind of getting your feet wet because you can't get over what happened to you, and you're just kind of delicately playing out there. It's that second year, and even maybe most of the year, before you finally are comfortable jumping and landing in traffic again, where you're not thinking at all about any sort of physical limitation or an injury. You're just playing again. He just hit that stride probably in the last 2 months.
Yeah.
So he's now feeling really good about himself mentally and physically.
And him being a star is a big part of this series, but obviously the 2 biggest stars, Jokic and AD, in that matchup, because they will be going up against each other. And, in 2020, Jokic averaged 21.8 points per game in the series versus Anthony Davis's 31.2 points per game. AD also hit that game-winning 3 in game 2. So will the matchup be deja vu or brand new when it comes to Jokic versus AD?
See, I think this one is more brand new from this standpoint. Look, I'm not going to be shocked if Anthony Davis averages around 30 points a game in this series. He's that good. We know that when he consistently comes to the right mindset, he's capable of being the best player on the floor every night he plays. The brand new part is going to be Jokic. His production is going to be significantly different than it was in that series. He's a different player now. He's got far greater confidence. He is a guy now that also does not allow stretches of the game go by without you feeling his impact. I will be surprised if he is not somewhere in that 30 points per game range, which you're talking about almost a 10-point per game increase over what he did in the bubble. So I think that is where that matchup is going to be a new element to it, because Jokic now, I think, has the firepower to match an Anthony Davis when he's playing really well.
How important do you think that matchup is for this series?
Critical, because I think Anthony Davis is probably the one guy physically equipped to guard him in straight-up situations when he has to, because he's long enough, athletic enough, and most importantly, strong enough because of how heavy Jokic is and what he can do to you with his back-down dribble game. Anthony Davis has all of that in one package. Very few defenders have that in the league. So we're going to be watching him guarding Jokic, but then importantly, does he, and I always joke about this, does he eat his pregame meal with the intent to do damage in about 4 hours? That's what I wonder about Anthony Davis sometimes. Does he have that killer mindset every game? Because that's what it's going to take, and we're waiting to see it. He finished the last series very strong, but we know he had a couple games earlier where that wasn't the case. That is a critical element, so that's why that matchup is so important. Okay,
let's talk about another matchup. That's Aaron Gordon, most likely matching up against LeBron James, which he has had some success. So he has limited LeBron to a 39.5% effective field goal percentage. That's the lowest allowed against LeBron in the last 10 years. Do you think it's going to be deja vu or brand new when it comes to them?
I'm going to go more brand new there because I'm going to give LeBron more of the benefit of the doubt that he's not going to have a similar shooting percentage against Aaron Gordon. I just talked about physical profile with Anthony Davis, by the way, on Jokic. Physical profile to guard LeBron James. Aaron Gordon has it. 6'8", 6'9", strong as an ox, athletic, has can close late, can contest late, and still bother LeBron. But I just think LeBron is in a really good place right now offensively with the pace that he is playing at. He gets the shots that he wants when he needs it. He does not settle for what the defense wants him to take nearly as much as he did earlier in his career. And that's why I think that 39% effective field goal percentage will be much higher in this series.
But he picks and chooses.
He does.
When he needs to go full throttle. Does he need to go full throttle every single game this series for them to win?
I don't think so. I think, again, he's going to feel it out. I think they're a better team when guys like Austin Reeves and D'Lo, right, and Schroeder are empowered. LeBron has a way of empowering you, so he's got you later. And then he can pick his spots when he needs to play downhill and control the game and control the pace, particularly in close games. And that's when I think the Lakers are going to have to be at their best. I think the key to the entire series, if you put one thing at the top of that whiteboard, control pace.
Yeah.
It's all about pace. The Nuggets will hit you with an onslaught, makes or misses. And when they get into their early offense with Jokic running all those dribble handoffs and catching the ball multiple times before you're back and prepared to set up, they're almost impossible to guard. So the pace is everything, and LeBron offensively is how he controls that pace. So he will pick his spots when to do that.
The Lakers haven't seen an offense like this postseason. The Nuggets haven't seen a defense like this postseason. Let's get your pick. While we're doing this, remember the Air Corgi who
forget?
Yeah, that was
I want to adopt him.
You did. But look, he didn't get. Everybody was talking about he was going to get the predictions right.
Look at this. Look at this.
Now,
that's a swish.
So
Now
he's saying he's picked this series. I don't know if he's a trustworthy person or dog, not a person, but he has the Nuggets winning 4-2.
I think first you got to check and see, does this dog have a DraftKings account? You don't know what's going on here. Has he got money on one of these teams that affects his decision making?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But that's twice he's picked against the Lakers. So I don't know. I'm going to go against the Corgi. I don't have faith in him. But what about you?
You going with the Lakers?
Based off of Corgi, I'm going with the Lakers.
Listen, it's the worst part of the job. Predicting.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know on a given night who's not going to show up.
I have no idea this series.
The series, though.
I know, but I'm saying, because the ebb and flow of the series, I don't know from game to game, but my gut tells me this is a coin flip series. That means I'm going to favor the team with the home court advantage at the end of the day. Again, they have not lost in that building yet. And if they can get it to a Game 7 in that building with that environment, Nikola Jokic at home, I'm going to go with the Denver Nuggets in 7. I know Lakers fans hate me because I thought Golden State could beat them, and I hear about it every day. Every day. Heard of that baggage claim today at the airport, some guy. I'm come on.
Are you new to this? You know Lakers fans. They're always going to talk.
I know,
I'm just excited for the casual fan to watch this series who are just I know LeBron, I'm going to watch him, and then find out, who is this Nikola Jokic guy? He's really fun to watch.
Fast, slow guy.
Yes, exactly. That's going to be interesting to see. So, all right, we'll see how that plays out tonight on ABC coming your way. But also, let's shift things to the East. And that's another bubble rematch with the Celtics and Heat. How about Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo? Heat just killed that postseason. Bam was a force down low. Remember that block? That was a defining moment in the bubble, and the Heat would go up 2 games on the Celtics, who were paced by Jason Tatum, and Boston would get as close as 3-2 in the series, but it was no match for the emergence of Tyler Hero, and Miami would win in 6 en route to the finals against the Lakers.
I just want to mention that this music has got me like tapping my feet. I'm moving side to side, so whoever picked this music, it is really good. Okay, so we're going to play another game, Legs, that I know you are going to enjoy. It is called News or Noise, where we look at just kind of some of the things that are buzzing around these teams and talk about whether it's news or noise, starting with that Miami team, who obviously needed 2 games in the play-in tournament to advance, and now we see where they are. They're in the Eastern Conference Finals. A lot of people like to talk about this Heat team, and they mention the culture every single time. It's the Miami Heat culture. So is the Miami Heat culture news or noise?
Oh, that's news. That is news. That's legit. And it's not, but here's the thing, it's news, but it's not hot off the presses. This is how it's been for a long time. And the reason is because, mainly because of Eric Spoelstra. Eric Spoelstra pays more attention to the details that matter than any coach in the league. And so his ability to clean things up in a film session, in a walkthrough, in the course, in the heat of the moment in the game, he's so on point with what he is seeing and watching 10 players at the same time. That's what the culture's about. The detail. They're 5 guys on a string defensively. They don't leave guys out to get hung out in isolation situations. They protect each other that way. They manage big possessions like so well. That's what Heat culture's about. They expect to win. That's really what we're talking about here. There's no doubt. There's a bunch of certainty in that locker room, and that goes a long way in the playoffs.
And that man is a big part of the Heat culture. Something also not hot off the presses, playoff Jimmy is a real thing, and he was a 3-pointer away from pulling off the upset versus the Celtics last year. He has gone on the record to say that the Heat will win Game 1 and be the first of 4. So, news or noise, it doesn't matter about anyone else because the key to the series is Jimmy Buckets versus everybody else.
Noise. He's not beating this team like that. He's not doing to this team what he did to the Milwaukee Bucks. Right? He basically single-handedly won that series offensively and 2 of those games without Giannis. That's not going to happen this year. You're talking about a team now that are not the defensive team that we saw last year in Boston or even the beginning of this season. But this is a team that's got a ton of individual defenders. So, will Jimmy Butler be very good in this series? Absolutely. Some nights he'll be great even. It won't be to that extent. And that means you better get major contributions from Bam Adebayo, from their shooters, an X factor like a Kyle Lowry, who was so good in the Knicks series, and a guy that has so much
Winnable
playoff
plays.
experience. Right? Basically, you could tell he preserved himself for this moment all season. We didn't know if he's going to retire, and look how well he's playing. So you're going to need...
Off the bench, too, by the way.
Correct. You're going to need all that stuff. You're going to need all of it. You're going to need a 5-made 3-pointer game out of Duncan Robinson. You're going to need it all. All hands on deck to beat a pretty complete Boston team on both ends of the floor.
You talked about them being complete. Jason Tatum had 51 points in Game 7, which was wild. Is it news or noise that Tatum's skill can overcome any defense that Miami throws at him?
It's noise, but it's like a din noise. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like crazy noise. It's like just a little noise in the background, like white noise when you go to sleep, right? You listen. Because it's possible, but come on, to predict a guy could drop another 50-piece in the same postseason after what we just saw, I don't think that's going to happen. What's going to be most important is how Jason Tatum performs in close games, because these are going to be tight games. There might even be some games where it's first team to 100 type style wins. So Jason Tatum has to be great, like he was in Game 6 in Philadelphia, when had one of the worst offensive nights you can see a star player have, period, in a big spot, completely flip the script in a 5-minute stretch and get them to a Game 7 where then he goes for 51. So nothing is out of his reach, but that's an awful lot to ask, another 50-piece.
Yeah, and that Game 7 performance, 51.0 turnovers, by the way, pretty much closed the book on the Doc Rivers era in Philadelphia, which was the big breaking news today. So your thoughts on how much blame should be on Doc Rivers' shoulders for the way the Sixers ended their season?
But when a coach gets fired, it always feels disproportionate amount, right?
Yes.
Because that's what's going to change. You're not going to change your personnel so easily. But he has to own some of it, particularly the way they played in offensively in certain moments, particularly Game 6. He's got to own that. And he's had some disappointing pressure playoff performances from his teams over the years. Lost 5 straight Game 7s.
Yeah.
So there's something there. There's definitely when it ends that badly, you expect this kind of change. So I think it is something that was necessary moving forward, but I don't think that Doc Rivers deserves probably as much blame as it feels like when you fire the coach.
Yeah, and being around that team as much as I was this year, he was a big part of the reason why that team believed that they could win a championship up until they gave up in the end of Game 6 and, of course, Game 7. I think a part of the reason, too, they may have let go of Doc is because of all the head coaches that were out there available. Who do you think could be the next head coach of the Sixers?
Yeah, you're hearing the same kind of 5 or 6 names circulating, and I think for me, if I could go pluck one guy, it's going to be Nick Nurse. I just think, I look at Nick Nurse from a personality standpoint. He's a guy, I think, number one, is going to come in that locker room having the Sixers played against him so much, and Embiid in particular. There's going to be a lot of respect there for Nick Nurse because they've coached against those teams, and Toronto has played very well against the Sixers over the years. So the respect factor is there, and all Nick Nurse has to do is say, Joel, I want to squeeze that last 10% out of you to get you to a title because most of what you do is pretty dominant already. I can help you manage those situations and play more to your strengths when we need you to because that's really what we're talking about here. Not a complete overhaul. It's how do we squeeze that last 10 or 15% of efficiency offensively out of their star players when it matters most. I think Nick Nurse is, from an IQ standpoint, is very close to Spoelstra. He sees everything. I think he would be a great hire.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Mad Hatter for a reason, so we will see how things develop in Philly. In the meantime, we are counting down to the start of Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals as you're watching Hoop Streams coming to you live on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and the ESPN app. We're firing up the time machine in this 2020 bubble rematch. The two teams split their 4 regular season meetings 2-2. Of course, it bears mentioning the two teams last played January 9th, well before the Lakers trade deadline overhaul. We now welcome in Trey Murphy to Hoop Streams. Trey, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate y'all for having me.
Of course. How much have you been watching these playoffs? Have you been like us, watching every single game? And if so, what's your biggest takeaway so far?
I've probably watched about 90% of the games. And, biggest takeaway I've seen is just, the intensity level is really high in these playoff games. And a lot of these games are coming down to just like single possessions. And so that's why you have to value each possession like every single time you play in these playoff games.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about the playoffs in a little bit. However, I want to go back to February because you were in the slam dunk contest and the Grand Theft Alvarado was probably one of the best things that I've ever seen. It was wild. You obviously came in second place. So would you be up for doing the dunk contest again?
Who knows? We'll see. I'll leave it up to, some fan answers. I'll ask them if I can go back into it. Next year.
But it was a competition. I mean, you had a lot of great dunks. So I still feel like you have some more tricks up your sleeve. You don't have any regrets about that night, do you? Or is there a dunk you would have rather have done over again?
Probably my last one. But overall, though, I made all my dunks on the first try. I definitely feel like I put on a little bit of a show. So, I was pretty happy with my performance.
As you should be. That was a big highlight in a season for you guys that was, up and down. And it was really because you guys were up against so many injuries to several players. The chemistry of your team is strong. We've seen that the last 2 years. But, what would you say to Pelicans fans, in terms of what they can look forward to next year if you guys are at full strength? Because you only had 10 games with Zion, B.I., and C.J. playing on the court together.
Yeah, no, definitely. One thing that's not going to change is that we're going to be a really connected group. We're going to play with a lot of passion, and we're just going to be fun to watch. First of all, Zion, he's a generational talent. And when he's on the court, it's just electric in the building. And, just look at this right here. There's not a lot of people in the NBA doing that in the middle of a game. So, I'm just really excited to get back on the court with my guys again. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I know we have a lot to prove.
And I think that's the big thing about Zion and the frustration with just his injuries. And I'm sure he's more frustrated than anyone. But is there something that you can tell us just about when you've seen him at full strength that people need to be reminded that how special he is when he does get out on the court?
I mean, that full month of December, he won Player of the Month, and he was playing at an MVP level. And I don't get starstruck, but like I was watching him play, and I'm just like, man, this dude is like really good at basketball. And yeah, he's just one of a kind. And so people just have to remember like what he's capable of. And obviously Zion wants to get back on the court and, be himself. So no, you just got to be patient and let time do, what's supposed to do.
Okay, I want to talk about, you said that Zion is one of a kind. There's a guy who is likely going to be #1 overall in the NBA draft this year. His name is Victor Wembanyama. You might have heard of him. Obviously, when Zion came out, everybody was talking a lot about him, and a lot of people are talking about Wemby as he's coming out and how huge of a talent he is, one of the best to come out since LeBron James. Do you feel like we should be talking about Victor Wembanyama in this way?
Absolutely. I mean, he's proved it on a professional stage. And what he does is on the defensive end, he's going to be one of the best defensive players in the league. So, like, no matter what he does on offense, he's always going to have a really big impact just for being tall and agile and, having good timing. So, I'm really excited to go against him, see what he has in store for, the NBA. Because at the end of the day, this is the best league in the country, well, in the world. And these are going to be the best players. You got to see what you can do against the best players in the world.
And we're minutes away from finding out who is going to get that #1 pick in the draft lottery. We're also moments away from the start of the Western Conference Finals. Can you just do us a favor? You saw a lot of the Lakers and Nuggets this year. What is your scouting report specifically? Let's start with the Nuggets.
Nuggets, I mean, the big elephant in the room to speak about definitely Jokic. He's MVP level player. He impacts the game at a really high level, gets his teammates involved, scores at will very efficiently. And, this playoff series, he's been playing a lot better defensively. And so he's just been playing like at a really complete level. And really the best thing to try to do is to just try to cut off his outlets and try to let him just score as much as he can and then not let the other guys get involved. That's really your best bet. But once other guys are getting involved and he's scoring, they're a really tough team to play against.
And what about that guy, LeBron James and the Lakers? We keep saying he's going to slow down. He's 38 years old. What did you see out of going up against LeBron, AD, and the Lakers this year, which they were two different teams after the All-Star break?
No, yeah, definitely. We've played against both versions of the Lakers this year. And, you definitely saw them progress a lot throughout the year. And you just see how methodical, LeBron is on the offensive end as well as defensive end. And really, their team changed once they got players that really complement LeBron. And once that happened, it unlocked a whole new team. And also defensively, they've been very elite. They have AD, who's been playing at a really high level defensively. LeBron's been locking in. Dennis Schroeder, Jared Vanderbilt, all those guys, they've been playing really good defense. And, it's just put their team at a whole nother level.
I do want to mention something that Cass just mentioned, the fact that LeBron James is an old guy in the league. Do you see yourself playing after 20 years in the league?
I hope so. that'd be nice, but I'm saying that now, but I don't know how my body's going to feel after 20 years. So we'll see. We'll check back in another 20.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, Trey, thank you so much for joining us on Hoop Streams, and good luck in the off season, and we look forward to seeing what you guys can do next season.
I appreciate that. Also, go Pels for the lottery. 0.5%.
That's what I'm saying.
You said 0.5.
You said playing against Wembanyama. You guys have a chance to get him. That's all I'm saying.
We're joined by Ronnie 2K, the face of NBA 2K, for today's ratings update. Ronnie, let's start in game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, because we're going to take a look at the top-rated players on each team. But I want to talk to you about how you see this series shaking out.
Man, this series is like going to be crazy. I was at game 6 the other night when the Lakers beat the Warriors, and to beat that much shooting is pretty crazy. But the real thing is like it's going to be a high scoring series. Don't sleep on my boy Jamal Murray. I think he's going to have a great series, and it should be a lot of fun. I think I'm going to take the Lakers in 6. I know it's crazy, but I I think they're kind of destined. It's kind of crazy.
No hope in the Joker. So Tatum obviously dropped 50 in that one game, and then MVP, but had like an okay showing in the playoffs. How do playoff moments impact players' ratings, if at all?
Well, so they don't in the playoffs, right? Like it's too much of a small sample size. It's too much of like playing the same team over and over again. So like it's not really affecting this year's ratings. However, it is a lot of information for next year, right? And some of the big storylines and seeing how these guys play definitely impacts where we're going to go for NBA 2K24. So, I mean, there's been some monumental by some amazing, players over the course of this playoffs. Devin Booker, at the beginning, and obviously Jason Tatum with his Game 7 performance the other night. These guys are definitely on our radar, and we expect big things of them next year. So I imagine it'll only positively affect their rating going forward.
That makes sense. Okay, so the draft lottery is also happening, which everybody's been talking literally for the last year about Victor Wembanyama. What is going to be his 2K rating next year?
Man, it's crazy. I mean, like, we just haven't seen a guy like him really ever. And so he's going to be one of those tough ones for us to rate. The highest rookie rating I believe we've had in the past like 7-8 years since we adjusted the whole rating scale was like an 81. I mean, there's an argument to be made that he should be the highest rated guy in that period. We'll see if that nets out. Obviously, there's a lot of basketball between now and then. We got Summer League. We got a lot of things. We're going to have a really good taste of how he stacks up against American competition and against some of the best players in the NBA. So really excited to see that development. But he's definitely an interesting guy. He's built like a video game character. He's going to be fascinating to watch.
So if you were to guess right now, like not take into anything else into consideration when it comes to Summer League and the things that he has to do you have a guess of what you would make his rating if it was right now?
I can't give you that. Come on.
Are you sure?
No, no. Like I said, I think he will be the highest among the highest rated rookies of all time going into the league, just because he's shown every tool in the book, and we're all really excited to watch him play. But yeah, just need a little bit more information on him for sure.
Who was that rookie that got an 81?
I think it was Zion.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I mean, he was probably the most. He was probably the most hyped guy of the past 7 or 8 years, but also the one that had backed it up the most.
Right. Exactly.
And he had a huge summer league too. So like, let's see what Victor does.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see what happens. Ronnie 2K, thank you so much for joining Hoop Streams.
Of course. Enjoy the game, everyone.
While we wait to see what Victor does, we now know where he will likely go. I have to say that, but we know that he's going to be the #1 overall pick, and the lottery results are in, and the Spurs, yes, Greg Popovich and the Spurs benefit again from another tanking. First, they got Duncan after tanking, and now they get Victor Wembanyama if he goes #1. Legs, your reaction to the Spurs landing the #1 spot?
Last time they had the #1 pick, big guy in the draft, worked out pretty well for them, I'd say, for the next 20 years with Tim Duncan. It's amazing that it ended up being this way because of the irony with it being the Spurs and coming off the season they had and ending up with a guy with this kind of potential. And he's even more hyped probably than Duncan was coming into the league with what this upside be. I mean, he might still be growing.
Yeah.
We might have George Mirasan on our hands playing point guard at some point if he keeps going. It's just interesting because Pop, obviously, toward the end of his career, and will he be a guy that's the perfect guy?
15 more years for Pop.
I don't know how many more years he has, but I think he's going to be a guy certainly that's going to be great at the beginning of Wembanyama's career to learn how to be a pro, how to win, how to be a complete player, how to be a teammate, like all of those things that the culture of the Spurs was about when Duncan was there. Perfect guy to teach him that. Now, will Pop still be there when he is like superstar status, which we expect him to get to by that 4th, 5th year when he really starts to hit his stride? Maybe that's somebody else that benefits from that position.
There was one thing, there was like an SC featured or something on SportsCenter recently when Victor was talking about the fact that he was going to be at the draft lottery, and he was saying that Obviously, he's going to be there when you see he's going to be picking number 1 overall, and he said he's going to have his real reaction when he gets home.
Right, I saw that, yeah.
So how do you feel like he would really react now that he knows that he is most likely, as we know, going to be going to the Spurs?
You know, it's interesting because he obviously has, I'm sure, very much a lot of respect for Greg Popovich, right? And then the culture of the Spurs. Even though he's a young guy, he understands what that's all about, right? So part of that is probably exciting for him. But I also think there's probably some guys on some other teams that maybe are younger guys that are high picks that he can identify with a little bit more that maybe he was looking forward to pairing up with. Some of the elite talent that some of those other teams have selected in the last several years. Spurs roster isn't quite built like that.
Yeah.
So you wonder if his connection will be there in that regard. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I think the guy is probably just super excited to get this started. And to hear his name called and finally get to the league when we've been talking about him, seems like for the last couple of years.
But you bring up a good point that sometimes it's just as much about the fit when it comes to success of a player. And, you know, Victor Wembanyama is being pegged as a generational talent before he even plays in an NBA game. I mean, we had Adrian Wojnarowski say he is probably the most anticipated prospect in all of sports ever. So, you know, with that type of pressure and the roster around him, like, how do you feel like that, from what you've seen from him, how that's going to work out for him, understanding how the NBA and the Western Conference plays out?
I think from that standpoint, where he went is going to be very helpful to him. The market is knowledgeable. They're going to have patience with him, right? It's some markets you go to, you know, the expectation is almost impossible to reach in those first couple of months, and you're hearing all kinds of stuff. And maybe there are times when you have some confidence issues. I think Greg Popovich, San Antonio, the culture there, the city, the market, really fans that totally understand what all this is about and support that team. I think from that standpoint, he's in a very good place. But the way their roster is constructed right now, that team could still be a ways off from turning it around and being a relevant, competitive team in the Western Conference.
So as we talked about, Spurs landed in number 1 pick, and as you see on the screen, the Hornets at number 2, Blazers at 3, Rockets at 4, Pistons at 5. While there's a consensus that Wembanyama is going 1, we'll see what happens with 2 and 3, because Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson, we had Scoot most of the year being in the number 2 spot, but Jonathan Givony has his mock draft, Brandon Miller going number 2. So we'll see how that all plays out. That's for the draft, at the end of June. We're minutes away from the start of the Western Conference Finals. Who did the Corgi pick again? Oh,
the Nuggets.
Yeah. Okay.
Pick the Nuggets. I think 4-2 if we're going by baskets.
So, but he didn't pick this exact
Bigger
game.
question is, how do I adopt that dog? Where's the adoption paperwork that I need?
People's dogs,
I want the dog.
Lex.
I want the dog. A basketball playing dog in my house? Are you kidding me? That's the one thing we don't have at our house. I need that.
Thanks for watching Hoop Streams. For Christine and Legs, I'm Cassidy. Enjoy game 1.
I want that dog.
Steal people's
I want that
dogs,
dog.
Legs.
That's amazing.